Let's explore even more autistic history and the Autism Wars. This is part 119 of a series. I'm picking back up from the article I was sharing in the previous video titled The ABA Controversy, written by Bernard Rimland back in 1999. Rimland was a supporter of ABA, but was having some issues with it being touted as the only therapy for autism. Rimland had ideas about many therapies for autism, and those therapies were not getting the attention or the buy-in that they were actually working from the medical community. So here we go. The Autism Wars are gonna get intense. So I left off with the results were thus to some extent contaminated by participant bias and expectancy. Rimland goes on to state further, all of the methods of measuring the effect of treatments were to some degree subjective and a source of error. No study of the effectiveness of ABA used double-blind procedures or scientific laboratory analytical equipment. Okay. In contrast of the 18 studies showing vitamin B6 and magnesium, here we go, Rimland's belief system coming right in, 11 employed the double-blind procedure. Further, in addition to using soft behavioral and observational criteria, such as were employed in the ABA evaluation studies, 10 of the studies of B6 and magnesium measured the presence of abnormal substances in the blood and urine of autistic children, and found that the B6 magnesium to have improved the children's metabolism. I still don't understand how the hell B6 is making these children not autistic. 5 studies of the B6 magnesium in autism have shown normalization of brainwave activity. In the autistic children. All right. These are hard, objective, measurable, scientifically replicable findings. Show me the equivalent of such solid scientific evidence in the ABA literature. It is absent. Amazing when they get mad at each other, what they're shouting at each other. Your science is bunk. And the other ones are yelling at them, your science is bunk. And it is hilarious until you realize how many autistics are harmed by this pissing match between doctors and their egos. All right, let's go back to this. The situation is similar with regard to the efficacy of the case on the gluten-free diet. Study after study has documented the presence of abnormal substances in the urine of autistic children, with improvement in the children's urine and the children's behavior when the special diets are implemented. There are over 40 such studies, yet the New York State report claims the diets are ineffective. Very strange. Interesting. The truth is just not true if it doesn't conform to their belief system. All right, so recently an organization has been formed with the title Association for Science and Autism Treatment, ASAT. Their literature espouses the same nonsensical, counterfactual position as the aforementioned New York State report. ABA is the only scientifically valid intervention for autism. Their position is indefensible. It requires a distorted view of what science is all about, as well as a willingness to ignore all relevant evidence. The ABA is the only way. Folks are wrong, not only because of their lack of information about research on the validity of other interventions, but because of their failure to recognize that parents have a right and obligation to consider all possible forms of intervention, including those which may not have yet won the stamp of approval of whatever person or committee feels qualified to pass judgment on candidate interventions. Rimland states a case in point. ABA itself I can't help but wonder how the ABA only folks would view my efforts to have ABA accepted between 1964 and 1987. Though there were no control group studies, and certainly no double-blind studies to point to, the evidence was clear enough to compel me to fight for ABA. Should I have abandoned my efforts for more than 2 decades while waiting for a control group study to appear? I'm glad I didn't. It is a major mistake to think of ABA as being competitive with rather than complementary to many other interventions, particularly such biologically based interventions as vitamin B6 and magnesium therapy. For years, our publications have urged parents who are about to undertake megavitamin therapy to refrain from mentioning the new intervention to teachers, therapists, grandparents, sitters, etc., so they would be able to obtain objective input from these blind observers. Each such case is a mini, double-blind, single-subject experiment. We have heard from hundreds of parents who have reported our therapists who did not know about B6 we started last week said our child has made more progress in 1 week than in the prior 3 months. And he states here, if you really want to be scientific, do a mini double-blind trial on your child. And once again, we have Rimland encouraging parents to experiment on their children, their autistic children. All right, so it doesn't get any better because next up I'm going to share with you an article that was published in Life, I think Life magazine, May 7th, 1965, titled Scream, Slaps, and Love, a surprising, shocking treatment helps far-gone mental cripples. So with that headline, let me just give you another warning. This is Autistic History and it is brutal. So content warning throughout all of Autistic History, but this is going to get especially difficult because of the severe approaches, the harmful approaches that they took with these children. And these children are the ones that Rimland mentioned at the beginning of the previous article. Pam, Billy, and another child. Anyhow, so I'm going to share that article, or I'm going to share this article with you so you can get a feeling of what was going on with this research. Actually, I'm going to wrap this video up here and pick up with that article that was posted in 1965 with Ivar Lovaas's experiments and research on autistic children and what was happening to those children at the same time. And these children that are mentioned in this article are the same ones that Rimland spoke about at the first part of the ABA controversy article he wrote. So Pam, Ricky, and Billy, I believe, are these children's names. And what happened to them is inexcusable and horrific, all based on the idea of converting autistics into passing as NTs. But we'll get to that. So thank you for hanging out with me and exploring a bit more autistic history, and I'll see you next time.